O meu lugar é caminho, jogo e ação. Lá tem samba até de manhã, uma giga em cada andar. O meu lugar é cercado de luta e suor, esperança no mundo melhor e cerveja pra comemorar.
Bom dia, everyone. Thank you for joining me again on Aspire Beast Council, our lunch and learn, where we learn how to analyze deals with the Aspire Beast Council calculator that we use. We created with ChatGPT and want to educate our members and those who are interested in investing in real estate on how to analyze deals and what they're looking for. So thank you again for joining me. Bom dia. I'm Charles Clark, your real estate investment broker, here with another bright idea. Thank you again for joining us. Want to always give a big shout out to Next Home My Way, sponsor of this video and this webinar. They let us use their media room to put these on, and just want to always give a big shout out to Next Home My Way, Jose, Carlos, and Angel for allowing Aspire to run our stuff here at their headquarters on 5151 South Howell Avenue, across the street from the airport. So if you hear some noise, that is me being across the street from the airport and next to the highway. With that being said, if you're a real estate agent, broker that's looking for a new brokerage or your first brokerage, Next Home My Way, you should really consider it. They provide the tools, resources, coaching, leadership, mentorship to help you take your brand to the next level. They recognize that real estate is changing and growing, and it's about building individual brands and not necessarily building a brokerage. And so it's providing tools and resources to help each individual agent reach their potential. And that's one of the major things that we do here at Next Home My Way, is to make sure that we're supporting our agents and our brokers on to build their business. And so always want to give a big shout out to them. Obviously, I have my broker license and I have my team raise the standard under Next Home My Way. And I'm just so grateful that they allow me to put on the Aspire Mastermind Meetup group monthly, the second Wednesday of every month. We just did that last week, and looking to prepare for the next one. We got a couple speakers for next month. Actually going to be going over some different tools on helping investors. One of our speakers created a property management tool, and then we have another speaker who will be speaking on their tool that allows investors to find more deals by using AI. So really looking forward to that. Again, Aspire is a ecosystem that we're trying to create that helps investors keep building their investment business. That is part of the reason why I wanted to team up and create Aspire. I recognize with me being a real estate investment broker, only focusing on investments and helping individuals not buy a property, but buy a business. It just so happens to be a property, right? I recognize that there was a lot of gaps in the market when helping mom and pop, your middle management, your CPA, your doctor, your engineer, who all know that they make good money in their field, but know that they should invest in real estate if they want to aspire to live the life that they always wanted. As I always share with people, there's 5 pillars of investments that you need to invest your time, effort, and money in to build a financially free life. And that's investing in bonds, stocks, real estate, local businesses, and investors, slash entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are the ones that create the local business. The local business needs to eventually have real estate. That real estate can grow into, and that business can grow into actually needing more investors to build that company up, which that turns into stock, right? Everything doesn't necessarily need to be traded on the NASDAQ or the stock market to get investors to put money into it. You have your local businesses that have local investors and they have stock into it. So everything doesn't need to necessarily trade on the stock market for you to have investors invest in your business. And then eventually you get so big, bonds, right? Bonds are things that individual businesses create, or the government, right? Investing in bonds, the U.S. bonds, which affects the interest rates, is a great way of it's a great way of hedging interest rates in that market. So it's kind of a defense in your portfolio a little bit. And it's guaranteed income, right? I kind of compare bonds to very well-off investment properties, because you're not looking for a major jump in the money that you invested in. You just want to make sure that you're maintaining it. You want to just maintain that income that you're wanting to get, right? And bonds kind of help maintain those things. So again, thank you for joining me and being a part of this Aspire Beast Council. Before we jump into the actual calculations, I like to just want to break down how the calculator works and what it's about, and how it gives individuals a framework, right? I think majority of the time with investors is that they are missing out on creating a framework so they are able to analyze deals. I think sometimes people don't understand that you have to have numbers to be able to analyze numbers, right? If you don't have a framework, or if you don't have anything to compare your numbers to, numbers are arbitrary, right? Just because I say something is cash flowing $500, what does that mean to you, right? Well, it means nothing if you don't say, well, the $500 is compared to, I need to make at least $300 a unit. Well, if that's a duplex and you make $500, I need to make 300 a unit. That means I need to make at least 600 every duplex. Now I can analyze that duplex that comes in at $500. Is that $500 at the max that I can make? Is that $500 based on current situations, and I need to fix it up and make it better, and then I can make 600? Because then if that's the case, then that's a deal I should further look at. But if that's saying, hey, that's the max, and that's based off rough numbers, then I can say, well, maybe that's not a good fit for me. Anything as I would say close to $100, I would always consider, if based off my number. And as you grow, you start moving away from cash flow into percentages, right? Cash on cash return, right? So most people who invest in real estate, they compare the investment against the stock market, right? If the stock market is bringing in 7 to 10% returns, well, then if I'm going to invest in real estate, I should want to bring in 10 to 15%, which that's typically what happens when you talk to most investors. They're like, hey, I want a 10 to 15% cash on cash return on my investment. And if I can't get that, I might as well keep my money in the stock market, right? So Aspire is helping you guys get a framework. And also, because we have members, Aspire is to help teach you, right? It's to help create a narrative for the analysis that you're doing. Sometimes when I started, I was just putting numbers in a spreadsheet, and then I would look at it and try to come to my conclusion. Well, now using ChatGPT and building this calculator through it, I've been able to create a narrative that you can go through, and a story that you can create going through that analysis with that deal, right? So, and that's ultimately what we're trying to accomplish, is analyzing deals that tell us a story, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're investing in. We're investing in, a story that just so happens to be a property, that so happens to be a business, right? Or you can say I'm investing in a business, I'm investing in a story that happens to be a business, that happens to be a property, right? Well, what is that property telling you in those things, right? So that's my ultimate goal with the Aspire Beast Council, is to help individuals better understand how to analyze deals, and then what to do, right? When you're analyzing a deal and you're putting it in a spreadsheet, the spreadsheet doesn't tell you, hey, do this, or look out for this, or hey, confirm this information, or do some more information on this to, for us to find out more information so that we can better understand this investment. The Aspire Beast Council actually does that. So, so without further ado, A is Aspire. We used Aspire name to actually create the framework for the calculator. So each letter actually represents data that you need to actually analyze the deal. So A is for address asset. This is basically what you're looking at, right? And in this situation, you should kind of know what you want to try to accomplish, right? Hey, this is a single family house. I think I think this is the best fit as a fix and flip, right? Having that information and having that understanding just makes it so much better to actually go through the process of, creating the numbers that you need to compare, right? If I just say I'm looking at this deal and I don't know what is, then it's hard for me to compare, right? I don't know what this deal can be. So, for example, one of my clients, I had a deal starting to fall through with another client, and before they would back out, I let them know, like, hey, I think this is a great deal. I know you need a certain number, right? And that's the situation is perfect, right? They wanted to reduce the price $5,000. The seller felt like they reduced it to enough point. They didn't want to do that. And so they was like, well, we need our number to be here. For whatever reason, that was their reasoning, right? They needed 5,000 less. I thought that was an arbitrary number, just because of what you can do. And 5,000 to me is not that big of a number to walk away from a deal. That's me personally. That was something different from what they wanted. They needed their number, and that's the way it is. I feel like, between maybe 10, 15, sometimes depending on the bigger the deal, 20,000 doesn't really mean much. So if you are dealing, and this property was around 120 something, so 5,000 to me was that kind of threshold where you should be able to still move forward with this deal. So in this process, I found another investor client that I had in mind and told them, hey, I think this deal is perfect for a fix and flip. However, I also ran the numbers for a buy and hold, a BRRRR. It ended up being a BRRRR, right? So we ran the numbers for a fix and flip, but we also ran the numbers for a BRRRR. And because I was able to compare those numbers to the market of what it would look like for a fix and flip and what it would look like for a BRRRR, he was able to make that decision. And because of that, the market shifted a little bit. He felt a little unnerved and uneasy, and felt like, the best thing to do is to go get a DSCR loan, pull some of that money he put into it, pulled it back out, and be able to have enough funds to go get the next deal. So again, those are the frameworks you should have going into analyzing the deal. S is for seller situation. A lot of times people don't think it's important to know what the seller situation is. I disagree. I think sometimes most people just rely on a wholesaling deal and saying, hey, that's where it's most important. I think when deals are on the market, it's something that should definitely take in consideration. Is it a city property? Is it a business? Is it bank owned? Is it an LLC? How long has it been sitting on the market, right? Because that changes the seller situation as well. So all those things come into play when you're analyzing the deal. P is for purchase price and purchase assumption, right? Purchase price is what the seller thinks they should buy it at, and purchase assumption is what I believe I should buy the deal at. And just because the seller thinks that's the price doesn't mean that's the price, right? And sometimes I've realized I've run into a lot of sellers who own a lot of properties and they're still a hobbyist, right? They couldn't tell me their numbers, right? I think a lot of times when I look up on deals on the market and I don't see a pro forma, I don't see certain things, then I kind of at times feel like the investor is not really running an investment business, because those are some of the things you should automatically put up. And then again, that is part of the reason why as an agent, I started getting into this business, because I realized these were some of the resources, tools, and information that investors are looking for that is not put with properties. I can guarantee you right now, probably 90%, if not 95% of, let's say, quote unquote, duplexes on the market don't have any leases with it on the market, right? They don't have that information that I can pull away, right? They don't have the rent roll. They don't have a pro forma. They don't have a balance sheet. They don't have an income statement. Again, I don't help people buy a property. I help them buy a business. It just so happens to be a property. All those things you would need if you were buying a business, and those things are not, majority of the time, are not there when you're buying a property on the market, because most agents treat the property just like it's another property. As a single family home, I'm not going to have a pro forma, right? I'm not going to have a balance sheet. I'm not going to have an income statement when I'm selling a single family home. I is for investment improvement. This is the bee's knees. This is what makes most deals what it is, right? Force appreciation. The only way you can force appreciation is through improvement and by investing into the property, right? So this is the value add. This is where contractors are the most important people in investments, because they are the ones that take a property that's worth $100,000. You put 50,000 into it. You use them to put that 50,000 into it, and now it's worth 225 or 250, right? They are the ones that add that value to make you able to take advantage of that situation, and where you're able to do the BRRRR or a fix and flip. R is for revenue, right? And revenue can be your profit from the sale of the property, or it can be the monthly cash flow that you're getting as well, right? So if it's a fix and flip, those are some of the things that I do sometimes on a fix and flip. I run it as a fix and flip, and what is that end profit? And sometimes I still run it as if I turn around and rent it and what it would look like, because it does help you better analyze that deal and see what you can truly get worth, right? Because some of the fix and flips that we do, an investor ends up getting. So like, to understand what that number should be so that investor is willing to get it plays a huge part. And then E, we're back at the beginning, exit strategy, right? And it's saying, basically saying all this information in there was the original exit strategy you were looking for. Is that the best way to do this deal? If not, based on the information you gave me, here are the top 5 exit strategies for this deal. And so the 5 exit strategies is buy and hold, BRRRR, fix and flip, seller financing, and wholesaling. Those are the 5 exit strategies that you're trying to get, or how to make this deal happen, and what you're trying to do after you get off of it, right? So there we have it. And so what we're going to do is, I've kind of changed my ways. At first, I used to not pick deals that are currently on the market. I tend to try to find deals that were not, they were already sold or expired and things of that nature, because me being a licensed broker. However, I felt that it was more important for me to start analyzing actual deals that are actually on the market, so that individuals like yourselves can get more of a real life experience of analyzing something that's currently on the market. All right, so let me get some things set up here, and then we can get this ball rolling. So there we go. So this is the Aspire Beast Council. I call it the Deal Command Center. And we've, as AI and as you keep working with it, it kind of keeps building and growing on it. And having other opportunities for you to make it better. And I feel like that's what's been kind of happening with this. So let's get it started. So you can hit either one of these things. It basically starts it off, right? It breaks it down of explaining what it is, right? Evaluate deals, issue formal rulings, right? And it takes a very conservative stance on the deals that you are putting in there. Its goal ultimately is to break down the deal to a point where that if it's a deal, it's a deal because you are putting in the information that you need to ensure that you're getting the outcomes that you're looking for, right? So again, it's breaking down. So the Lion Cub, so that's where the Beast Council comes into. So Aspire, we created a Beast Council for our members so that they can go through the stages of, starting out, becoming a good investor, and then ultimately being an ultimate investor, right? And so one of those things that we go through is the each stage. I believe there's 10 levels. Yes, it's 10 levels. Each level has 3 levels within it. And then there's the ultimate level. So it's Lion, then there's Bull, then there's Dragon, and then the ultimate one is Phoenix. Phoenix is the top one that we have in our group. And right now, I think we have 1 or 2 in there. And we're looking to get more people to the Phoenix stage. So even people that's in our leadership, they're still growing through. We have people at different stages of that. And we welcome all types of individuals from Lion Cub to Phoenix to join our group and put you around those individuals and give you the systems to help build up your portfolio. All right, here. So as you can see, it's going through A, right? It's asking you for the address asset before we proceed to seller situation, price improvements, revenue, right? So it's asking for this information. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how I kind of run the deal and use some of the resources that I have being a real estate broker in the state of Wisconsin and some of the resources I have. So this is where I do come into play and say, hey, this is where, we have our 90-day cohort going on right now. So we're coming through the first stages of, what we're doing. And part of what we're doing right now is that we recently completed is the buy box, right? The buy box is what helps you analyze deals, right? Because it's what I shared before of what you're comparing to, right? And so, and then the next phase of that process would be, okay, who, you need to start making connections. Well, the next person is a lender. I even say a lender, you should go to a lender before you go to an agent because the lender is what tells you what you should make, what you can spend. They let you know the capital. Maybe you're not at that point. So then the next person you should run into is an agent, right? Or a broker who is an investment minded broker or agent who can help you understand those things, right? So with me being an agent in the MLS in Milwaukee, I have access to this. So I am going to pull some of this information, right? So I'm going to be looking at this. So this is an 8-unit. Turnkey 8-unit multifamily portfolio consists of 4 well-maintained duplexes offered. Oh, well, see, I don't want to do that. That's a little bit more complicated than I want to deal with. So I want to see if I can. There we go. That's what I wanted. So is this single duplex right here, right? So this is in a portfolio, as you can see, right? So this is the one I want. So I'm going to run the analysis on this and then put that information in here, right? So, and this is the beauty, again, about how I feel about running things on AI, just because you are able to interact with it, right? If it was just a regular calculator, I'll just put that information in there and then I'm done with it, right? So this allows me to actually engage with it and give it the information. So I'm going to just, and then I can talk to it as well. Please use this PDF form to do pull all the information that's necessary from it, stop there, and then go to S. Then use this same document to pull the information out for the seller situation, since this document represents the property being on the market and it provides the seller information as well. So let's knock out A and S together. So again, this is the beauty of going through these steps and using documentation to provide that information for you. So again, trying to go a little bit quicker because again, I want to show how using this calculator should actually speed up your analysis, right? And using tools, right? And if you don't use this tool, try to find another tool that's for it. I can tell you right now, pulling this same information that I was and actually entering this information into other resources and pulling that stuff together, it was taking me probably, I want to say maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours to do one deal analysis. Now I'm getting it down to almost, I want to say I can almost do something between 15 and 45 minutes. It just really depends on the deal and how in depth I keep going into it after I give it the information. Right. So now we have this, we have the address, we know it's a duplex, it's a 2-story, it's built in 1916, it's 3,200 square feet, it's on 0.1 acres, 3 bedrooms per unit, 6 total, 2 full baths, full basement, garage is non-natural gas, verified, so it's giving you all this information that you need. And I think sometimes people don't get all this information when they're buying an investment property, right? You need to understand the investment you're getting, right? You need to understand all these things when analyzing a deal, right? Because if this becomes your property, you need to know all these things. So having even a framework or a system of gathering all this information, I can tell you right now, I've probably analyzed far over 2, maybe 3,000 deals, and I've maintained most of them in my system. So I have file folders. So now it's kind of funny now that when I'm analyzing some deals that I already have a folder for it. And now it's like I go back in there and I see, oh, I analyzed this deal 2 years ago and now the person has it on the market again. So that's what you're going to go through when you've been analyzing deals for and you're trying to be a real estate investment business, right? So seller situation is actively listed, right? Seller offers concessions. Yes, days on the market is 42 days, right? Again, this is a prime example of, and again, I'm biased because I'm a licensed broker. I like things that are on the market because it tells me what it's actually valued at, right? This person could have just put this property out there and said, I'm doing it off market and this is what it's worth. And I know this is the right price. Well, if no one ever questions, or give pushback or say, I think that price is wrong, they might not realize they're like, oh, no one really wants it. But when you put it on the market and it's just sitting there, then that's when the issue really comes up, right? That's when now you can say, hey, that property is not worth that amount. You've been on the market 42 days, right? Here's the reason why, right? And that's the whole point of this calculator is I like to say I don't like to tell people I'm giving a lowball offer because I never give lowball offers. I'm giving the offer that is going to allow me to do my strategy. Now, if you take that as a lowball offer, that's your opinion, right? Then I'll be asking, well, what do you think is a good offer then based on my strategy, right? I'm trying to accomplish this based off these things and based off these numbers. This is the result I'm coming to. If you think I'm wrong, prove me wrong, right? And that's the conversations that I try to have with agents and other investors is this is not a challenge at you. This is me challenging the numbers, right? And the numbers don't lie, right? Unless you make them lie. But what I'm trying to say is that if I have a systematic way of looking at deals and I'm showing it with you and I'm trying to show that, hey, this offer I'm giving you is not lowball. It's the offer. This is the maximum acceptable offer I can do based on these things. If you can help me change these numbers, like, hey, if you're saying, I think I need to put 50,000 in this property to make it work. You're saying, no, you only need to put 30. Can you show me how I only need 30? And if that's the case, you know, um, then I will adjust it, right? Because if I don't need to put an extra 20,000 in a deal, yeah, then I could probably figure out how to give you 10 of that 20, right? Uh, but again, these are the things that information that you need to put together so you can put the deal together, right? So you can put the right offer together, right? And so now it's saying, hey, here's the things you didn't verify. So the calculator gives you points for all the information you can verify, and then it gives you it takes away points when you can't verify. So I don't know the seller motivation, required closing time. I don't know the existing loan balance. I don't know if they're willing to finance. Are they flexible? And is there any liens, right? But again, now if I was just running this in an express sheet, you know, if I've been in the business, I probably know like, hey, these are the things I need to do. But if you're new, like this is nice to, oh, okay, maybe now I can have a call back and say, hey, ask about motivation. Is there a required closing time, right? This is helping me build a conversation that I can have with the agent or the actual investor, right? Even if this is an off-market deal, I can now have some of these conversations, right? So now it's based solely on these materials. Right now it's giving me that stuff. So I want to go to purchase price and assumptions. So I am going to give 2 reports. Please use both reports to come up with the ARV and purchase price before we figure out what is the investment to help with the maximum acceptable offer. Please use these analysis to come up with P, and then we will move forward to I. So I kind of just pulled this, right? So this is the CMA from the MLS report, right? It's going to give me a certain number. And then I also have a report from RPR, which is a realtor's property resource, which again, that's something for the broker we have access to. So as you can see, the numbers are very, very low on this property. So so it's already recognizing that the price is too high based off what's going on. So I want to go and see in here and see if I can gain some more knowledge and see if that is right, because, you know, don't always want the highest price property in the neighborhood, right? Especially if you're trying to fix and flip it. So we have some low numbers here, right? We got 137, 145, 174, 174 that's active. I'm assuming that all these 174 are the properties that are in this person's portfolio, right? Because they're the same price, but then there's nothing else around it that is being sold at that amount. So we have a 185, right? So that is the one thing in there that is being higher amount. So, and then we have 165, 162, 169. There you have it, right? So based on the document currently available, the asking price of 174 is to see the conservative market, which kind of agree. Now it is saying there's getting 1,000 each. So if you do the 1% rule, which rarely works anymore nowadays, that's $2,000, right? So we divide that by 1%. That is a $200,000 value property, right? That's based on the 1% rule. That logic really hasn't been working lately, but you can use it to give you some framework, right? So in this situation, most people be like, oh, 200,000, they're selling it for 174. I have 25,000 in equity. Well, depends, right? Because rents, and especially in Wisconsin, especially in Milwaukee right now, rents are on the up and up because our supply is low. So just because you can get a higher rent doesn't mean the value of the property is more. Unfortunately, in our market, we do have a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, we have enough landlords that don't improve their property but can still raise rents because the lack of availability and supply of the lack of supply of properties to rent, right? So with that being said, I think you could probably raise the rent for things and not necessarily improve the property and people will still pay for it. Now that's, you know, good from a standpoint from a landlord. I say it's bad from the standpoint of community building, and improving neighborhoods, because you are able to not update a property and still maximize um, the amount of rent you can get from it. I'm just a big proponent that, um, even though I might not live in that home, that I still want to present it in a way where if I had to, I would, and there would be no hesitation. And again, that's one of the other reasons why I decided to move my niche market into this field, because I wanted to have a bigger impact on that, um, of helping investors actually be the type of landlords where people appreciate and care for, instead of someone that they complain about, right? So now that we have that, um, I'm gonna go through it and let's just look at some photos, right? Um, so they don't have the photos. So because they don't have the photos, I'm gonna have to have an assumption of what the property's worth and what we might need to put into it. So I am going to say this property needs a conservative rehab. So let's price it out at a moderate rehab and um, use that for I, and then go to R. So again, because you know ChatGPT is connected with stuff, this is the beauty of it, right? It's giving me a brief analysis of what it might cost for properties to be fixed and the things that I need to use, right? So 8,000 for interior paint, flooring, trim repairs, kitchen 12, electrical 6, HVAC service 4, exterior repairs 5, windows 3, turn costs and punch list 2, subtotal 40,000 with a 15% contingency. So 46,000 is the rehab budget. I think that's a good one. Again, that's going to affect the price because the property. Let's go and, like I said, looking at some information, right? So if we do tax info, I can go down and say, oh, okay, this was bought 2 years ago for 85,000. Did they do anything? Right? And they could possibly. I would think if they did stuff to it, they probably would show the pictures. But since they didn't show the pictures, I'm having to assume that they did not. So is that $90,000 worth of equity in the last 2 years? That's a lot, right? That's a lot. So I'm assuming that this 46,000 is something that I would have to take in consideration if I want to maintain this property for a long term, right? So this is what they're saying for that, right? For R. So they're kind of moving on to R. I'm going to give them information before they can actually do that. So I pulled out the rental report from Rentometer. That's what I like to use. So I'm going to dump that in here. And so please use this rental report from Rentometer for R, run the analysis, and then stop there and then go to E. So now it's incorporating this. Right now it's going to actually take the information. So monthly rent is 11, median rent is 1,100, or the average rent is 1,090. So they're currently at 1,000. So again, this is a situation where, does putting $46,000 into the property so I can get an extra $100, is that worth it? I don't know, right? But the 75th percentile says 1,300. Can I get 200 extra? Maybe it's worth it then, right? Maybe it's worth getting that, and then plus the appreciation I can get to the property. And then if I'm able to pull some of that money out, again, this is going to be a little bit harder because it's basically saying they're trying to sell this property at the top of the market, right? And is it top of the market type of property, right? Just because it's cash flowing, that, am I going to be able to cash flow, right? Depending on how much money I have to put down, I don't know if that's necessarily going to give me the return I'm looking for. So again, now it's running through it. I love this because it's telling me this story, right? It's giving me this information. They're saying this is the gross schedule rent. We give the vacancies in here, and here's the effective gross income, right? And then this is a council observations. The median is 1,100. Only amount has increased over the current, right? The council reports uses 2,200 for gross rent after fixing it up, right? So proceed to E. So now it's going to go through that process, right? It's going to proceed. So now it's going to go from best to worst. So it currently right now says it's a buy and hold or BRRRR, right? BRRRR is conditional just based on where we can buy it at. BRRRR is basically kind of just buying it and keeping it as is, right? Is it something that you can keep it as? Can I just buy it and not necessarily update it? Again, if that's the ultimate goal, then this property doesn't work for me, right? And that's the thing that most people don't realize, which strategizing. I kind of shared this in some previous ones of having, a customer reach out to me to, a consultation, and wanted to understand how they could better scale, right? And as we went through the, my checklist of questions I asked people, we got to the point where I was like, well, have you bought something recently? And they were like, yeah. And that's part of the reason why I'm struggling, because I don't know how to scale from this. And I was like, well, where's the money you pulled out? Well, I didn't pull out any money. I was like, but I'm cash flowing, right? And I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's a great buy and hold strategy, but you're in the wrong property, or you used the wrong strategy for what you're trying to accomplish, right? You should have been using the BRRRR strategy since you want to scale. You're using the buy and hold strategy because you bought it, you improved it enough so you can raise the rent. And so now you're cash flowing, but now you didn't raise it enough where you can go refinance and pull that money out. So that person did the wrong strategy, right? And that's what you need to better understand, and what you need to go through to be able to articulate better what are your goals and what are you trying to accomplish. And just because you like that property doesn't necessarily mean that's the property you should buy, right? And so now we went through this, right? So they broke it down. They feel buy and hold, BRRRR is 1 and 2. Then you create a financing, right? That makes it a little bit better. Wholesaling is 4. 5 is the weakest, right? Because to fix and flip it, you're already at the top of the market of where it needs to be sold. So for them to want to turn around and sell it to you at a lease amount so that you can put, right, you almost have to buy it back at the 85,000 and then put the 40,000 into it just to get it to 120 so that you can turn around and sell it for 175, right? That's the ideal flip situation, which to me, if they did that, I can see this being sold at that. I just don't see that at the amount from what they're showing, right? Even the pictures, I would say going into the property, showing that you fixed up the property could sell it much better than just showing pictures of the outside. So now the key measures, right? Purchase price, conservative rehab is 46,000. Total amount in is 220. Current rent is 2,000, right? So now the 1% rule can make a little bit more sense from that standpoint, right? But we're underwriting at 2,200. Effective gross income minus the 5% vacancy. Operating expenses 35%. You're roughly looking around $8,000, and then estimated NOI. Then we got the cap rate of 174. Equals 9.4%. They're assuming that the cap rate at 220 is 7.4, right? Working ARV stabilized, it's saying it's 150. So I'm already losing 20,000 based on the numbers that are going on in there right now and what the value of it, right? So even working value is 150, less rehab is 46, less risk buffer and transactions 14, 24. See, the maximum acceptable offer is what I would have to offer what they bought it for 2 years ago, right? So again, I wouldn't be lowballing them. I would just say, hey, I'm not lowballing you. I'm just giving you what I'm trying to accomplish, right? I want to do this thing. Show me where the value of this is more than 150,000. I just showed you there was one property that sold at that. So you come in at the 174, you're using the rents in the area, right? Which is valid, right? Because that's what I tell a lot of people. Knowing the rents and the cash flow you're getting, because investors, they're not buying a property, you're buying the cash flow. right? And I think that's where I try to help people articulate that a little bit better, is that you're not really buying that property. You're buying the cash flow that that property creates, right? And that's the business. You don't necessarily care about the property. You more care about the cash flow that that property is bringing, and that is what you're investing in, right? And that is what you're ultimately making this decision on, not because if you like the property or not, or I like the neighborhood. Those things are cool, but if the property is not going to give you the return you're looking for, then you're just, this is a hobby. You're not buying with sense, right? You're not making a intelligent decision based off the numbers that this property is producing. You're just figuring out, oh, this is what I can do, right? We try to create a system, right? The whole point of this is creating a system that you can make these decisions within so you can keep it moving, right? And so it's saying, in notable, the property documented 2020 transfer price was approximately 85,000, which falls within this conservative acquisition range, right? So now we're going to look at the 10-year strategic outlook. Year 1 and 5, right, is approximately 1,100. Year 7, 10, long term is more likely to drive returns than immediate cash flow. Downside stress test, a 10% rent reduction or major capital expenditure would materially compress returns at the current asking price, right? And so now we got it in saying this is not a deal, and then it's telling you why, right? If asking price exceeds the conservative valuation supported by the supply and market evidence, projected rental performance does not provide adequate margin of safety once moderate rehabilitation costs, right? We're going to put 40,000 into it, and then we only can raise it $100. It kind of doesn't make sense from that standpoint. Now, maybe you can just buy it and not have to put that in there. Maybe that makes more sense, right? So it goes through it, and it tells you what it supports, right? Again, this is the point of the calculator, is to help educate individuals better to become better investors, right? We're just not having you put information into something and it spits it out and you don't know why it necessarily spit it out. And then what on top of this, it gives you things to work on, right? So it's telling you what it supports, it's telling you what it's flagging, but then it also is giving you a retrade directive, like what are the things you can do, right? So we score this to 100. And anything above 70, you really consider. Anything above 80, you should pull the trigger, right? And so it's saying basically for you to pull a trigger, we need to either acquire this at 95,000 or acquire it at 110 and then change the rehab to 25,000, or see if we can raise rents to 1,300 after we improve everything, or be all in 160, right? So then it's telling you these are the goals, is 95,000 if you can get it that way. Then it's saying, hey, if you still want to consider these, here are the orders of next steps that you should do. And again, this is why I truly enjoy this and why I have incorporated this into our 90-day cohort. It gives you things to keep doing. And that's what the Aspire Mastermind group is about. It's what are we doing today and what can we do tomorrow to keep things moving forward, right? It's kind of my business motto, is be better by being better. Like, what are we doing to improve? What are we doing to get better? What are we doing to ultimately accomplish the goal that we're doing, right? So it always gives you 6 to 7 things that you can do, right? It's saying, hey, you saying it's 46,000. Can you obtain a bid, right? Can we take a contractor with us and go look at it? That's more ammunition that I can share with that seller. Like, hey, man, it is going to cost this much, right? Then I need to get the leases, right? Rent roll, collect trailing 12-month operating expenses, right? These are other things that if they don't have it, you can understand that they don't run this business like a true business, right? They don't have that information. See if you can negotiate down below the 174, right? And then this gives you a reason to reach out to a DSCR loan lender, right? And see if what they have, can they make this deal happen? Can you reach out to a hard money lender and see what they can do, right? And then all this information just gives you what you need to do to accurately analyze a deal, right? So at the end of the day, this is a no-go at this point right now. Now, if I put this information in there, then it makes it a deal. Again, I'm not going to go into a situation with rose-colored eyeglasses and say, oh, no, but I still want this property. I'm going to still move forward with it, right? Even the portfolio, he put all these together. You know, maybe it makes more sense if them all together at that price. But then again, if if it doesn't work with these individuals, does it work in all together as a whole, right? It might be easier to get a loan because you're trying to get all of those at once. And because of all the cash flows coming in, they can offset each other, right? At the same time, you might be paying more for something that should be lesser, but because it's in this group, you're kind of paying more for the group where there's individual things in there that are worth less, right? That's just like a hostile takeover, right? When someone takes over and then they start selling off parts of it that actually are more valuable, that could be the case here as well, right? So with that being said, right, that's how we analyze this deal in Milwaukee. And how we can get everything done. All right. Well, we at that 50-minute mark, I'm doing good. So there you have it. We analyzed the deal, right? Duplex in Milwaukee right now. That property is currently on the market. You can see how there's a difference of what I think that deal is, right? Because is that deal good for just like regular buy and hold as is a little bit skeptical, right? But most of my strategies are for BRRRR, right? I want value add properties because I want to keep recycling my capital to get the next big deal, right? I'm still early in my real estate portfolio building that. Buying something where I can just buy it and start appreciating it is not something I want to do, right? I want to do value add investments, right? I want to buy something that I can enforce the appreciation of it so that I can turn around and go to a DSCR loan or a conventional loan, pull that money back out and go get the next deal, right? I don't need to keep raising new capital for every deal when I can go and get that capital out of the previous deal, right? I always think that deal one should pay for deal two should pay for deal three can pay for deal four, right? And after a while, you can go back and say, hey, deal 1 and 2 can go now buy deal 10, right? Because, we're recycling everything and you can go back to it, after so many years, right? There's no reason why you can't go back to your first deal 3 years later and refinance it again to go get the next deal, right? It's leverage, right? This game only works because of leverage. If you're not leveraging, then you're doing a different strategy, which it's not wrong, right? It's just a different strategy, right? Some people are I just want to buy one property a year and that's how I'm going to do it, right? Some people say I want to buy as many as I possibly can in that year. Well, if that's your goal, you need to recycle your capital and you need to show other individuals that you know how to do that. And recycling capital to get money back into those individuals' hands sooner than later helps you speed up that process, right? So that is definitely one of the things you need to do. Again, find systems to help you move quicker, right? And that was the whole point of the Aspire Mastermind. It's help building that ecosystem, right? We are just helping individuals create a framework so that they know how to run an investment business, right? And that's why I say I know I put real estate because I'm a broker in real estate investment business, but you're ultimately just buying an investment business. It just so happens that you're buying, real estate. This is no different than buying a laundromat. It has, numbers. It has whatever you're trying to, make money from it, the expenses and everything else, right? That's the same thing with buying this property, right? The service that you're providing in the laundromat is cleaning clothes. Well, the service that you're providing in owning real estate is somewhere to lay their head, somewhere there to sleep, to somewhere there can store, right? That's the business that you're in. And I think sometimes people get lost in that. And the better that you understand that that's the service that you're providing, people can, have a better appreciation of being a landlord and not someone that they feel like, oh, most people think like you don't got a job, right? There is things you need to do as a landlord to make sure the home is being accurately maintained and it's comfortable for the people that's there and someone enjoys calling it home, right? Those are very, very important things, right? I think I have one of the most important jobs in the world because I help people, find their home, become comfortable in their home, right? I think as a landlord, someone who has a good home they love coming to, they leave that home in a better mood, right? Less road rage. You know, when they go to work, they don't complain about the property, right? I lived certain places where it was just uncomfortable living there, and it affected my day, right? It affected me coming home. It affected me, you know, going to work and things of that nature. And so I feel like we, as landlords and real estate investors, have a very important job of building up communities, right? Communities is built with homes and buildings, right? And if those buildings look bad and they're not well maintained, no one wants to move in those areas. No one wants to invest in those areas. And then those areas don't get other resources. And I know that firsthand because I grew up on the north side of Milwaukee, and there are certain areas in the north side of Milwaukee are not the best. And I feel like there was a lot of landlords that um, um, pull resources out of those communities because they didn't care about those properties. They just bought them, put people in them, never maintained them, but always make sure they collect rent. And then when someone didn't pay their rent, they kicked them out, right? Those are those are not good landlords, right? Just because you own 30 of them don't mean you're a good landlord. You're just really good at um, using your capital, right? And I can say that multiple, right? I hands down know there's multiple landlords and investors that are on the market right now, and they are hobbyists. They are not really good at what they do, but they had access to capital and they were able to keep building it, right? And they make enough money that they can keep it flowing, right? That doesn't necessarily make them a good landlord. Right. So not to end on a sober note like that, but you know, I just want to explain why I enjoy doing this, because I genuinely want to make this industry better by providing information to individuals so that they can be better investors at this. Right. Some people jump into this without all the resources they need to accomplish the goal that they're trying to do because they didn't have all the resources. They didn't have a team. They didn't have an ecosystem. So me providing all these things is a way to provide the resources and systems in place to help someone go from 0 to 5 in 3 years, right? That's the goal that I have with all my new investor clients, is to try to get them to 5 investments in 3 years, right? I want to get them to $1 million portfolio in 3 years or less, and doing these things, right? I'm just trying to educate my future clients, and hopefully you'll be one of them. Again, this is from Expire, right? Would love for you guys to sign up for our membership. It's $29 a month to come to our monthly meetings. The first meeting is free. So feel free to reach out to me, DM me, or go to our Facebook page or our Instagram page to gain information. You can DM us, and more people can help you out with that standpoint. There's different levels to our Aspire Mastermind group, but would love for you to join us for our next meeting, which will be in July, the second week, second Wednesday of July, when we'll be running our next meeting. And then if you can't meet that one, like I said, it's always the second Wednesday of every month. Yeah. So thank you again. I'm Charles Stark, your real estate investment broker, here with another bright idea. Beleza.